Lisa Novak, you can open.
Hey guys, welcome to Novak News. Coming to you live every single week from Novak Studios. Tonight, we have got something really special for you guys. We are very honoured to be in the presence of Mr. Steve Carroll.
One of the best speakers in the country.
Yeah, he really is. Yeah.
In our world.
Without a doubt, guys, you're in for a treat tonight. Steve is the ex-head of digital of realestate.com.au. But seriously, you're in for a real treat tonight. We're just going to go straight over to you, Steve. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm in Brisbane. We've got a lot of freedom, and like the rest of Australia, you can hear me okay?
Yeah, perfectly. Perfect.
Beautiful.
Yes, I tell you what, talk about beautiful. What's the saying? Beautiful one day, perfect. What is it? Perfect.
Oh, yeah, something like that. Beautiful one day, perfect the next.
You guys have no lockdowns, no anything, right?
No, very limited. We're well behaved.
Amazing.
That's the bottom line.
But, well, I mean, the rest of Brisbane is. I'm not sure about you, Steve. Let's get into it. What have you got for us tonight?
Well, I mean, we were talking before we went live, and I was saying, I asked how long you've been married. 22 years, I think, was the answer. And I put it to you that technology knows more about Mark Novak than Lisa Novak knows about her husband, who she has been sleeping with for 22, 23, 24 years.
Yes.
Fact.
Yes.
And
only the last couple of years, the first 5 years, we didn't do anything.
Well, absolutely. Well, who knows? But the bottom line is, folks, the bottom line is this, is we have to accept that whatever we do, whatever we think, whatever we search for, somebody, some form of technology is gathering that information and then posting appropriate advertisements to us.
Big time.
Yeah. It's scary, right? It's scary, but it's the reality.
Well, it is the reality. And I mean, obviously, there's a lot of privacy issues that would take us ages to debate. But advertising now is so targeted. I mean, I grew up selling ads on newspapers. And I remember one of the catchphrases of newspapers, 50% of newspaper advertising works. The problem is we don't know which of the 50% is working and which of the 50% is not working. And that was the problem with the world of print, where you really couldn't measure the cut through. But technology now and digital enables you to get to the right person who wants to buy your services. And that is scary, I suppose, to a degree, but also full of opportunity.
Yeah.
So Steve, you've always been ahead of the curve. So you were with the newspapers before they became big in property with newspapers. You're with Realestate.com. You seem to be chasing ahead of that curve. Something you had a talk today with the head of Deliveroo.
Oh no! Well, we had a talk today, a presentation by the CEO of Deliveroo, a guy called Ed McManus. And he hit us with this remarkable statistic. And his point was, as a businessman or as a business leader, if you don't think COVID has rewritten the rule books, you're absolutely living with your head in the sand. And he made this point. He said, over the last 20 years, the average time in the evening that the average family has dinner has changed sort of 3 minutes that way or 3 minutes that way. Yeah. So, maybe it was 5 to 7, then it moved to 7 o'clock, and then it moved to 7:05, then it moved back to 7 o'clock. What he was saying is, over the last 4 months, the average time that the average Australian is having dinner has been brought forward by 36 minutes.
My
and
God.
The point that he was making was it'll never, ever go back to the original time. So let's say the original average time was 7 o'clock and it's now 6:30. What he was saying is it'll be 6:30 for a long, long time. And that is the impact that COVID has had on the way that we're buying, the way we're behaving, the way that we're thinking.
That's nuts.
It's true, right? And what are some of the other things that what are some of the other impacts that COVID's had on the way we are thinking and behaving? Because now we're obviously staring right down the barrel of COVID strike 2. What do we now know? And in a digital sense, what do we now know? What's going to change? What has changed?
Well, I mean, I think one of the big things that has changed is how easy we now are using Zoom. So I would put it I would put it to all of us that prior to Christmas, very few of us really knew how to Zoom well. But now everybody is Zooming. We're Zooming with customers. We're Zooming internally. I Zoom with my family. That has been a rapid change as a result of COVID. I reckon this. I reckon where we are now, Mark and Lisa, on August the 4th, 2020, it would have taken us to 2025 to get to where we are today if we hadn't have had COVID. So I think what COVID has done is it's brought forward that impact of digital by 3, 4, 5 years.
I call it an innovation boot camp, Steve. That's what it's been. And so those people, coming into COVID, obviously no one could foresee that we were going to have a global pandemic. But, people that did not believe about that they needed to innovate within their business, must realise now that innovation is it's a not negotiable, right?
Well, I think absolutely. Let me just answer. I'll come on to that in a second. You asked me the question about how digital or how COVID and digital, Zoom was one example. I'll give you another example, and that is, I think that virtual tours of spaces, whether or not it's a virtual tour of a property, virtual tour of a museum, virtual tour of an art gallery. I think virtual tours will just be part and parcel of what we do. And again, I think that has been accelerated by COVID. COVID has forced us to embrace that form of technology.
True. Absolutely true.
It's interesting. Steve, tell me, buyer, if I'm a buyer looking to buy a property out there, or if I'm a prospective tenant looking to rent a property out there, how can they use digital in your world and now and in the future to get an edge? Because we're constantly, like, I find as an industry, we're obviously talking about, agents and how agents can do this and how agents can do this. But coming from a buyer's point of view, coming from a prospective tenant's point of view, what are the trends?
I think one of the big ones, and it hasn't hit us yet, but you know how in the olden days, if you were a buyer or a tenant, you would buy the paper, the newspaper, and you'd flip through, and you'd put a big ring,
Clearly.
That was the olden days. And then we kind of moved to today where the same tenant or the same buyer is having to trawl through websites like realestate.com or Domain, and they're looking for somewhere to rent or somewhere to buy.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that the next generation of buyers and tenants will tolerate or accept that they have to flick through and find. I think they'll expect it to be delivered to them. Yeah. 100%. So I picture a world 2024 where I expect realestate.com.au or Facebook or Instagram to know what kind of property I want to live in, what kind of property I want to rent, and they serve me up suggestions. And my expectation as a consumer in 2024 will be 95% of the time you'll get it right. Now, here's the secret. If I'm served up a property that is not suitable, or if I'm served up a property that's not suitable for me to rent, I will just delete it, which will tell the tech company, don't serve up Steve Carroll, anything like that again. And as a result of that, they'll get more and more accurate to a point where they'll just deliver exactly what you want all of the time. I think that those media companies that dominate real estate 2024 and beyond will be the company that reaches that point the quickest.
Yeah. So, and you know what, it's interesting, Steve, because it is already happening. You know, I mean, if I'm online shopping, let's suggest, and I'm looking for a black dress, all of a sudden, all over my feed are different varieties of black dresses. So, and you're quite right. I mean, it already starts to take the theme of Lisa like this, she didn't like that, she liked that, she didn't like this. And so I'm 100% with you, 100% with you, because the other way is exhausting. I mean, you're preaching here to the already converted. You know, getting onto those property portals, if you're a buyer, must surely, I mean, I know that it is surely a frustrating experience for them. First of all, they're on 2 portals where everyone else in the country is on. And so there's nothing unique about that. There's nothing individualized about that. But it's a lot of energy. It's a frustrating process.
My wife and I, we're looking to buy a property in the UK at the moment. And the most frustrating thing for me as a buyer is seeing properties that I've already discounted. Seeing properties that I've already made a decision that I'm not interested. But every time I go back, I'm served up that property again. And so I think we need to reach a point where if I don't want to see that property again, I can say, don't show me that property again. Yeah. And I think, again, that is a world that we're going to be in quite soon. But just going back to your black dress. So don't forget, Lisa, right now, you have to look for a black dress for the algorithm or for the tech companies to trigger the fact you're looking for a black dress, and then they serve you ads. Imagine a world where technology knows you need a black dress before you actually personally know you need a black dress.
Steve, it does already, because there are times when I think I'm going crazy. Like, I'll give you an example. I need some work shoes, okay? Now, I didn't even punch anything at all into my phone. I didn't search for work shoes. You know, I wasn't even looking on those online shopping sites. Today, on my mobile phone, came up work shoes. I don't know how. And then I actually thought to myself, was I actually looking for these? Because I don't remember punching that in. Yet it served it up.
Surely, Steve, if you're collecting all that data and aggregating all that data across millions and billions of people, you'd get pretty good at predicting patterns. And that's what's happening. Whoever's got this data and controlling this data is going to be winning that game in 2024.
I think it's a combination of data which predicts that Lisa Novak needs a new set of shoes. So that's one. The other option is don't forget that you're being listened to. Don't forget you're being listened to. And so if you say to Mark, hey, Mark, I must get a new pair of shoes this weekend, then you can bet your bottom dollar Alexa or Siri or one of these technology platforms listens to that, and that's why you're getting the ads.
Bixby.
True. 100% true story. Steve, I'm interested to know, I mean, obviously, I'm a massive advocate for social media because I know that it works for the people. Okay, so this is not about Lisa Novak flying her own flag. I know that that works for the people, and I now know that that's what a large range of vendors, my vendors, and a large range of my buyers want. They're happy for properties to be served up to them on social media. What about those people that we had a discussion just before we came on air, and I said to you, what about the people that just, you know, aren't on social media or don't believe it? I was interested in what you had to say about that.
Yeah, so I don't think there is a businessman or businesswoman who doesn't believe that social media is a platform that works. I don't think there's anyone who doesn't believe the power of social.
Not
But I
anymore.
think a lot of people
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
got a blockage, and it's a bit like making an excuse not to go to the gym, or making an excuse not to go on that diet that you need to go on. I think that too many businessmen, too many business women, they find an excuse not to be inquisitive, not to be curious, not to get stuck in to technology or to social media. And I think that's the blockage. And my advice to anybody who has got that blockage is go and try and either talk to a coach who can help you unblock that blockage, or just stand up and make a decision. Tomorrow's the day I'm going to really get stuck into social media, because let's be honest with you, it's going to be very, very difficult over the next 3 to 5 years to run a business or be seen as a serious service provider to the community if you don't have a digital presence.
100%, 100%. Guys, I just want to say, for those of you that have just tuned in, we've got Steve Carroll here, ex-head of digital of realestate.com.au, just giving us his insights into where things are moving to in the future. So if you guys have got any questions for Steve, feel free to pop them in here.
Yeah, we can
try
see
and get them
the
answered.
questions pop up.
Yeah.
Steve is a little bit of an oracle in the real estate industry, with particularly the future. And Steve,
Yeah.
I've got to say, every time I've seen you talk over the last 7, 8, 9 years, it's all manifested. So I find it very, very interesting, anything that you talk about. And for our audience tonight, if it's not real estate centric, if you're a buyer, if you're a prospective tenant or a seller, not a real estate agent, but if you're in any sort of business, this applies to everyone and anyone, what you're talking about tonight. So if anyone's got any question, pop them in for sure.
Yeah, 100%. So Steve, it's easy for us to sit and talk about the next 3 to 5 years. I just think right now in the current climate, we can't think ahead 3 to 5 days. Sometimes I find that that's hard to digest when people say, oh, this is what's going to happen in the future. We're like, what the hell is going to happen next week? I mean, look at what's going on down in Victoria. These guys surely must be thinking, okay, we're in a state of complete lockdown now. What am I going to do for the next week? What advice do you give to people? And sorry for throwing you right under the bus here.
It's a good question, and this is quite a hard thing to do. But when I got back from the bike ride with Mark and a bunch of other real estate agents 3 or 4 months ago, I went into 2 weeks of quarantine, and I made a decision that every single day I would spend an hour doing exercise, and I would spend 2 hours every single day learning about stuff that I didn't know. In other words, I made a call not to spend 2 weeks of quarantine watching Netflix, but spend 3 hours a day. Yeah. And look, to be honest with you, we're up for 15 hours. So just donate 3 hours a day, 1 hour for exercise and keeping the mind sharp, 2 hours a day learning new stuff. So that might be learning how to use Instagram better. That might be learning how to use Zoom better. That might be learning how to create beautiful designs using Canva. But just have a crack. And so, we've got you and me, we've got lots of friends in Victoria, all of whom are in different industries. And, my advice to them is don't waste the next 6 weeks feeling sorry for yourself, watching Netflix, binge eating. Devote a certain amount of time to upskill yourself, because You know, before we know it,
It's a great idea.
before we know it, we'll be out of COVID. New Zealand are out of COVID. Thailand are out of COVID. Yeah. What we need to do is when we get the green light, let's make sure that we bounce into what is left of 2020. Let's make sure we bounce into 2021 upskilled with new knowledge, with more interest around digital and how it's impacting business. Because look, it's all there. You've just got to go and find it and Google and get lost on the internet and use the opportunity to learn.
Pick up the telephone, you know, the good old fashioned telephone. But you're quite right. I mean, you know, it's important, that we come out of it with a bang. Coming out of COVID with a bang. I think that's super important. And you're quite right. I mean, you know, there's no point saying, I mean, I spoke with an agent today who's in Melbourne and said, look, you know, can you help me a little bit with my social media? I mean, I'm sort of tossing up whether or not I should just take a 6-week holiday. And I'm thinking, you can take a 6-week holiday. I mean, you know, no one ever died saying, I wish I'd worked harder. You know, I understand he's got little children. And I think that's a great idea. Spend time with your family. However, be careful because your competition is upskilling themselves. And so you don't want to come out of COVID and all of a sudden Mark's social media has gone through the roof because he's had, 15 hours a day of just being able to plug away at it. And then you sort of come out of it going, hang on a second, what happened there? Yeah. He was listing and selling and I was, relaxing and having a holiday.
And that's not a COVID thing either. Like, I think at the end of the day, that's life. You know what I mean? If people want to dedicate this is, I think what COVID's done is, and technology has done is it's crystallized people a little bit to focus on what's important. So particularly for you, Steve, you had a really cool period where you could super focus. That's what COVID did for you. And I think you had a period because you had the technology at hand, you could actually detail and learn much quicker than you ever did before, together with YouTube and all that stuff. So it's really interesting. Out of interest, to give you an example, I talked to a restaurateur today on the back of your Deliveroo conversation that you had earlier, Steve. And he said 2 years ago he had a pretty bad business. He said, today I have a wonderful business. And I said, why? He said, I'm Deliveroo and Uber Eats. I'm thinking everyone's complaining about, their profit margin, stuff like that. He said, no. He said, it enabled me just to pump out of my kitchen.
Yeah.
And I think that's, these food and stuff like that. It's through COVID, it's going to be really interesting the way it goes. Dining out, dining at home, like you said 30 minutes earlier. Technology is just enabling, I think if people want to work out where it's going with what they want to do, they've got to work out with what people truly need and want, necessity stuff.
It's courage, right? We talked about this the other day. Courage is a massive word, right, that seems to have been forgotten. And I think that is the word that kind of defines what we're going through right now. Because like myself, 2 years ago, I put myself out on social media. And I know that Tom Panos and Imi were talking about it today, about how I put myself out on social media. And I know that people were laughing. Maybe they still are. But you know what? It took courage and I kept going. And, I didn't care about...
You loved it as well.
I don't know about I loved it.
You're passionate about it.
But I was passionate about it and I truly believed in it. But it takes that courage to keep going. And I think that's the thing, where we say, where do people start with social media? What do people do for the next 6 weeks if they're in lockdown? Just take the courage because, people are frightened, right, of getting things wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I during the 2 weeks quarantine, I've always been intrigued as to why every single minute there are 5 million searches every single minute on Google. And I've always wondered this question, what the hell are people searching for? So I made a decision that during the 2 weeks of quarantine, I'd look into that. And what I learned was one of the most popular searches on Google right now is the search for heroes. Yeah. And so whether or not we're talking about a real life hero like Nelson Mandela or Mother Teresa, or whether or not we're talking about a make-believe hero like Superwoman or Superman or Spider-Man, right now, what Google have said, it's all there. I've read it. I found this out in 2 weeks of quarantine. What Google said was, when the world is full of uncertainty, people take comfort out of watching heroes or being associated with heroes. Now, this is my point. This is the point that I'm making to a lot of audiences. If you're a real estate agent, or if you're a restaurant owner, irrespective of what business you're in, why don't you set your goal on not just being seen as a service provider, but being seen as a hero in the eyes of your customers. And again, when you think about it, people might snigger and laugh and go, that's ridiculous, but who cares? Yeah. Try and set that goal of being seen as a hero in the eyes of your customers, because what we know is when the world's screwed up, when there's inconsistency, when there's worry, people take comfort from being associated with a hero. So let's all try and be heroes.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And you know what else happened, Steve? COVID round one was information overload. You know, it really was. You know, I mean, we even now we do these little tiles, news tiles, and it's just 4 tiny little points. I call it the golden book of COVID, what's going on daily. Our media department does a great job of spinning out these tiles, and it really just breaks down the 4 top items of news. People love it. You know, we get so much feedback on it. And the reason is we're overloaded sometimes with information. I think if you can take the information that's out there and you can deliver it to the world through your social media channels or your community or whatever it may be in easy bite-sized nuggets, people will be eternally grateful for that.
If you can always help, if you can help people, you'll always be rewarded no matter what you do.
Yeah. And give it a crack. You know?
Absolutely. So what you're doing by
heroes, I love that.
So what you're actually doing by creating those tiles is you're positioning yourself as a giver. You're positioning yourself as an influencer. Yeah. And when the world gets back to normal, you'll continue to have that tag or that reputation of being a giver. You'll continue to have that reputation of being an influencer. And that's the opportunity that we've got right now. We don't want to be where we don't want this COVID. We don't want restrictions. We don't want to social distance, but it is what it is. Yeah. We can't change that, but what we can change is our ability to be more influential, our ability to create a reputation as a giver, our ability to be courageous and try things that we haven't tried before, because you know, that is the opportunity we've got right now.
I agree. And not only that, but then it's the consistency on top of it, right? Because it's one thing to be a giver during COVID and deliver all of this wonderful information, and then COVID's over and you just kind of disappear off the face of the earth. I think, you know, that's the hard part, right? To then be consistent with this kind of information. I mean, Deliveroo is not just delivering food during COVID and then we're never going to see them again. It's that consistency and that level of service. That's super important. Yeah.
They're a hero.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
They really, I know we're never going to admit it, but broadband over to NBN. NBN were absolute heroes in this market when medical and when people at home started Zooming, because we had that NBN laid down. We had no problems with bandwidth when most countries did. Deliveroo, Uber Eats, we're never going to pat them on the back, but these guys were really heroes. People don't want to go out. They can't go out. They're sick, whatever. These guys were delivering food for people to live.
Well, I always say
these heroes were unbelievable.
But I always say people will never forget the way you make them feel we've got a local Chinese restaurant that never delivered, right? You wanted to order Chinese, you had to go and collect it from the Chinese restaurant. So I called them up 4, 5, 6 weeks ago and said, look, are you guys doing delivery? Yeah, we're doing delivery.
Give them some support.
Yeah, we're doing delivery. I said, okay, that's great. They said, look, you have to pay cash. And I said, okay, well, first of all, a lot of people aren't using cash at the moment, but who has cash these days? Everyone's tapping. They said, well, I'm sorry, we can't deliver it unless you pay cash. And I said, well, I'm really sorry, but we're probably not going to order. We'll have to go somewhere else. Anyway, long story short, called them again a couple of weeks ago. I thought, we'll give them another go. Local Chinese restaurant. They said, oh, no, we're not doing that anymore. We're not delivering anymore. Okay. Anyway, Mark and I drove past there the other night, and the place that's usually overflowing with people was absolutely empty. So, you know, again, unfortunately, people just don't forget the way you make them feel. It's super, super important. What have we got? Some questions here, Mark? I've heard you cannot
Tom
promote
Panos,
your
g'day.
products.
Kristen, g'day. Alistair Flower, how are you? Boo, how are you? Michael Edwards, I feel like I'm constantly being stalked by Novak Properties.
We hope that's in a good way.
You are, Michael. Alessio, good evening. And there was a question there from Nikki Parker. Not sure if this is appropriate, but I've heard you cannot promote your product. E.g., can I put my webpage on Facebook to sell my products?
Not sure about that one. Don't know. Look, you can, I think you certainly, you certainly can promote your products. I mean, there's a thing on Facebook called Facebook Marketplace, which has been extremely successful. I've seen that grow from strength to strength. So I know that platform is certainly there for you. Yeah.
You know, one of the emerging things that I think is going to have a massive impact on all transactions, and that is the Facebook pages for suburbs. So we live in, our postcode is 4070. So there's a Facebook page for residents of 4070. And when you scroll through the post from the 3,000 members, there'll be things like, can you recommend a plumber? Can you recommend a real estate agent? Can you do that? Then you'll see people posting, I need this job doing. Can anybody help me? And I actually think that Facebook is doing a really great job in recreating the old-fashioned classified ads that you once upon a time saw pages. Right into these, right into their own platform right now. So there's changing. The media landscape is changing rapidly. It's a very, very interesting time to be around right now.
It's changing so fast. It's changing so fast, isn't it? It's crazy. All right.
Love it. Well, you're
closing piece of information, Steve. What's the gold nugget you're going to give us?
Well, I think it's that slide that you fell in love with, which is a slide that Jack Welch, the leader.
I use it all the time.
Yeah. And you know what he said was, if the rate of change outside of your business is faster than the rate of change inside your business, you are in trouble. Yeah. So when you think about that, your office in DY, you're in DY?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the center of the universe. Yeah.
So what Jack Welch is saying is, if the rate of change, the rate of evolution, the rate of new stuff happening outside of your office is faster than what's happening inside your office, then you are going to fall over. So the secret is, you got to make sure the rate of change within your organization is faster than what's actually happening outside. And if it is, then you're set for a good future.
100%, and never stand still. And also, I think it's critical to add to that, Steve, it's not too late. I think a lot of people think, I've missed the boat. It's not too late.
Well, it's not too late, Lisa. And also, learning is not an age thing. It doesn't matter whether or not you're in your teens, your 20s, your 30s, your 50s, your 60s, your 70s. Yeah. You need to double down on learning, because the rate of change, the speed of change is so rampant that if you don't, you're going to get left behind.
100%.
Look how old you are, Steve. You're really old and you know heaps.
Well, you know what drives me, just to finish off, that there was, I remember reading a book, and this author predicted that by the end of this decade, there will be a generation of people called the useless generation. And what he said was, so he was predicting 2028, 2029, but I think it's earlier than that because of COVID. It's been brought forward. He predicted that there will be thousands and thousands and thousands of Australians that will be part of a generation called the useless generation. And they're useless because when it mattered, they failed to learn. When it mattered, they failed to embrace. When it mattered, they failed to innovate. And as a result of that, they pay the penalty, and they're virtually unemployable. And they might only be 57, 58, but they're unemployable because they just don't have the skills that are required. So the reason, Mark, I'm 55, and the reason why
you can let it go.
The reason why I'm obsessed with learning and double down on learning is I just want to continue to be relevant to the people I serve, because the world's a tough place, and if you lose relevancy, you're out.
Look, you're certainly putting more in this world than you're taking out, hopefully like us as well. And you've definitely proved that tonight. You're a legend.
100%. Steve, thank you so much. That has been phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
Steve Carroll.
You're a legend.
X of digital, absolute weapon, and the last 12 months been absolutely pioneering and getting some incredible information out to our industry, into the marketplace for digital. Just a little plug for you, and I know
I was just going to say digital live, because I know a lot of people, and this is not at all why we had Steve on here. In fact, I don't even think he's certainly not expecting this, but there's a lot of people, Steve, that don't know where to go to get this kind of information. I know, because we've done it ourselves. We did it last year. Digital Live is a one-day course, but you're going to be going all over Australia?
Yeah, so October the 27th, we kick off in Sydney. We're actually kicking off at the Australian Film Television Radio School. So the locals call it Afters. So the Australian Film Television Radio School. Digital Live. I'm pulling together 9 or 10 of the best digital brains all together.
Wow.
And if anybody wants more information about that, www.digital-live.com.au, and you can read all about it.
No, we'll put a link in. Look, guys, it's phenomenal. Whether you're a starter or whether you're advanced, this is stuff that you don't want to miss. Mark and I did it last year.
Absolutely.
We'll be doing it again this year. That's where you can get some of your golden nuggets from.
Big time.
We will be there. Steve, thank you so much for your time. You're an absolute legend. Thank you so much.
Love you, everyone. See you, Steve. Thanks, man.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.